West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Wherever you're coming from, if you're there in the hall, if you're coming from the other side of the globe, if you're 10 miles from West Hill, if you're in Alabama, as our speaker Durante is, it's so good to have you with us this morning to gather together about the things that matter most in life. Really excited for this morning. John.
Thank you, Joe. It's good to see you all, those in the hall and those online via Zoom. I hope that our theme for today about community and connection will both inspire and challenge us. Something I've been reading this past week resonated with today's theme. It was being suggested that we are social beings and we need community. More specifically, we need to find connections with others. And it seemed to me that West Hill is a place where we strive to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to what Durante will bring to us later in our gathering. So now we move on to our land acknowledgement. And we begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations and was previously occupied by the Huron-Wendat and Seneca First Nations. This land is covered by Treaty 20 and the Williams Treaties of 1923 and lies within the lands of the protected Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement of 1701, an Indigenous citizenship law made between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe Citizenship Law nations in 1701 that extends from Montreal down to Fort Erie. One of the core values within the idea of a dish with one spoon is that those who use the land should not abuse it. Individuals and groups should only take what they need from the land so that there will be a healthy, long-term, sustainable environment. All participants in the agreement, or treaty if you like, had the responsibility to ensure that the dish would never be empty by taking care of the land and all the living beings on it. We invite you to visit a First Nation, attend the powwow, and stay for the great feast, where everyone is welcomed and expected to partake of the food that is generously offered to visitors, all in good fellowship. Powwows take place throughout Turtle Island. A Google search will help you locate one near you. At the end of the readings, we customarily add the phrase offered as wisdom for the journey. If you wish to do so, you can join with us in the response. May we walk in this light. Durante, our speaker today, has provided this reading for us today. To be progressive is to live in perpetual anticipation of what's possible. It's not about defending where we've been, but about preparing for where compassion and curiosity will take us next. The courage to reimagine faith beyond belief, to centre people over creed and connection over conversion is one of humanity's most remarkable acts of progress. When we gather with empathy and imagination, we become living proof that meaning can evolve, that love can outlast dogma, and that community continue to be a sacred space for growth, healing, and hope. To be progressive is to live with open hands, not clutching what was, but reaching for what might be. It's the quiet courage to stay curious in a world that rewards certainty. It's the decision to keep asking questions, even when the answers are still forming. Being progressive isn't just about our opinions on society. It's about our posture toward possibility. It's how we stay connected to what's next. When a community dares to evolve, when it chooses compassion over creed and connection over conversion, it becomes something sacred, a living testament to our shared humanity. West Hill's journey reminds us that meaning doesn't disappear when belief changes. It deepens. That hope doesn't require heaven, it just requires each other. May we keep building, keep becoming, and keep believing in the power of human connection to heal, to hold, and to lead us into what's next. May we remain connected to what's next, not only as dreamers of tomorrow, but as builders of today, offered as wisdom for the journey. May we walk in its light.
In its light.
It's time to introduce our speaker today, who is Durante Lamar. Durante is a former pastor turned secular humanist speaker, a content creator, and founder of DLDD World Group and Bridge City Global, which is a growing network of progressive, people-centric communities beyond belief. Known for his emotional, resonant oratory and thoughtful social commentary, Durante hosts Sunday sessions on YouTube, engaging hundreds weekly in conversations on empathy, meaning, and modern secular life. His work has featured alongside prominent voices in the atheist and humanist movements, celebrating the shared humanity that transcends dogma. We extend a very warm West Hill welcome to Durante. Good to have you with us, Durante.
Thank you all for having me. This has been just an absolute beautiful morning. Can I just say that from the beginning? I've enjoyed every part of this service. Being here, y'all have even gotten some tears out of me this morning, and we don't even know each other that good yet. So, but thank you all for having me. I'm so glad to be here again. My name is Durante Lamar. I'm the founder of DLDD World Group and Bridge City Global. Basically, that just means I'm trying to do a whole bunch of stuff in a little bit of time, and all of the stuff that I'm trying to do is ultimately making up time from what I felt like I did when I was a pastor. So I've spent the past year and a half of my life really pouring into this idea of launching and building more Sunday communities that are people-centric instead of faith-centric or belief-centric. And when I first started sharing the vision for building local communities beyond belief, I was heavily focused on ensuring that our communities would be grounded in progressive thinking, uh, people-centric ideology, and life-affirming values. Now, I've been able to spend a lot of time unpacking what people-centric and life-affirming means in the context of community. That was the easy one for me. It was answering the question, what is worth dehumanization? It was answering the question, what is worth demonizing another human? It was answering the question, what is worth diminishing someone else? And it was coming to the conclusion that, you know what, disagreement is no longer worth disconnection. Many of our disagreements have no utility anyway, you know? And so I realized that the life affirming and the people centric part, man, I've been, if I can pat myself on the back, I've been knocking that part out of the park. But what I really wanted to hone in on, or what I realized, is that I haven't been able to spend as much time diving into or unpacking progressive thinking, people centric, life affirming. Man, we're killing it with my organization. Progressive thinking is the place that I want to spend some time talking about a little bit today, considering that West Hill is a community of progressive faith. This feels like the perfect place to kind of platform that conversation. Because for me, being progressive has been a personal superpower. It's been a personal superpower. It isn't just nice for me, it works for me. Being progressive for me feels like it makes me better. It's how I defeat the statistics. It's how I remain the exception. It's how I overcome the odds. Because being progressive isn't just a position on society, it is a perpetual perspective in eager anticipation of more information. I am always sitting on the edge of what's next. I now teach my kids that intelligence is not knowing what you know, it's knowing what you don't know. And that curiosity that's born out of that, that's what drives the human experience. It is both a passive reservation of judgment and an active exploration of options in pursuit of what is possible and what is beneficial. So, if we could define progressive for this weekend's conversation, I would like to lock it in as progressive means being connected to what is next. And that's actually going to be my title for today's conversation. We are working on being connected to what is next. Now, the phrase connection to what is next refers to the conceptual link between our current actions and our future outcomes, such as the impact of present choices on the future. It often requires building connections to new ideas, new projects, new people to prepare for what's coming, as well as looking at societal challenges and how to innovate to overcome them. Ultimately, the what's next can be a personal path or a communal one involving a connection to self, others, and the world. And so, what I wanted to start with here is how to foster this type of connection, right? How do we foster connection to what's next? The first place is to encourage curiosity. Create environments that foster learning and curiosity, which helps meaningful connection grows. This is one of the most powerful factors that communities can offer. This is why I'm so excited to be here with West Hill today, because you have a place, especially being able to witness your sharing moment. That's a moment where we are encouraging people to be authentically themselves and to share their curiosity. That creates an environment that sustains learning, that underpins learning, and it helps meaningful connection grows. This also helps us to take that next step to empower agents of knowledge. To encourage people to become agents of their own knowledge formation, to discern, to discover, to explore, how do I feel about this? How am I interacting with the world around me? I love the fact that West Hill has made this jump, this transition as you have existed as a legacy organization to say, you know what do people need? How can we serve people better? That's giving people the freedom to be the agents of their own knowledge. When we create systems where, nope, you have to agree with me in order to be accepted, that person lose full autonomy of their own knowledge formation. And then in a sense, that robs humanity of even knowing what's possible for next. And so we have to realize that at this moment we are in an attention economy, but we can use that to our benefit by creating deeper connections rather than just passively consuming media. This is why I am an advocate for community, because we did an event with our organization last month in California. And so I flew out to California and spent a whole weekend with some of our people there. And one of the most powerful things that we observed is while we were together, no one was on their phone. While we were together, no one was scrolling through their devices. While we were together, for the first time for many of these people, they were fully unplugged from the internet and plugged into real life. And that is so helpful because it reminds us that the people that I see on television aren't always a reflection of the people that I see in real life. Being able to spend time with people in real life, that creates deeper connections instead of us just passively consuming information about other people through media. Then we never learn them and we never build those deeper connections. So when we're thinking about being connected to what's next, we also have to be connected to self. This is where it starts at. The groundwork of what's next is myself. Before we can connect forward, we must connect inward. True progress begins with self-awareness, self-care, and self-trust. And when you build communities that are around shared values, you empower people not to have to sacrifice their self-awareness, their self-care, and their self-trust. You get to come along and partner with their self-trust. You get to help them learn how to trust themselves. I did a series a few months ago and we talked about that there is a difference between being right and being present. And trust is, we build trusting relationships when we know that the other person feels it is more important to be present than to be right. Oh my goodness, that's how we build trust with each other. When we allow each other, look, the answer you come to may not be the answer that I'm going to come to, but I want you to be able to trust yourself on this process. A progressive mind requires emotional elasticity, the ability to stretch beyond old assumptions without snapping back to our comfort zones. When you stay connected to your creativity, your curiosity, and your compassion, you stay connected to possibility. And that's such a beautiful place to be in. And so, many ways that this helps us all is just that from self-care and well-being, stronger connections to ourselves can improve connections with others. Have y'all ever noticed that before? That sometimes some people have a really hard time building relationships with other people. Maybe they come off abrasive, maybe they come off aggressive, maybe they come off skittish. Whatever it is, many times it's because those people are not comfortable with themselves yet. Sometimes they have lived in environments where they've never even had permission to exist as themselves. And so helping people learn how to improve connections with themselves, how to be comfortable in their own skin, that actually empowers them to improve their connections with others, and it creates more energetic relationships. This can lead to personal growth and a deeper sense of wholeness, which improves readiness and openness for things to come. So what am I saying here? The most important thing of what's next, the most important part of what's next is who we are now. That's where we start at. Who am I now? Where's my self-awareness? Where's my self-care? Where's my self-trust? Because I have to make sure that I am ready and open and prepared for things to come. Developing a connection to your own creativity or intellect enhances your ability to connect to new projects, which in turn strengthens connections with those that you work with. All of a sudden, there's this fire in you that is contagious. And it doesn't just stop in this realm of energy and productivity. It also impacts our ability to build empathy. It impacts our ability to foster deeper connection to places, to people, or even concepts, which then help build our empathy. Is crucial for navigating future interactions and challenges. As a local community, developing deep connection, compassion, and concern for the people who live in your place, in your city, in your town, in your province can be a transformative exercise of ministry engagement, of realizing, like, man, I want to know the people who are here. I want to know what they need. What do they long for? What are the themes that their heart desires, and how can we, as a community, satisfy those needs? How can we be the city's church, the province's church? How can we be the ones that when someone has a need, they say, "That's the lighthouse that I can run into, and I know no one's going to judge me, no one's going to condemn me, no one's going to kick me out for looking different, sounding different, or thinking different." How do we let people know that we are that place, that they can come in here, that we represent what is now and what is next? So a little few reflections that I want to give this part before moving on is a great place to be is to prioritize. And this is even within ourselves, right? Because we start with this connecting to ourselves, is to prioritize our curiosity over our certainty. What am I curious about? I know I'm pretty sure what I'm certain about in life, but how much room for curiosity still exists in my life? And where are those areas? Where can those journeys take me? Another one is give yourself permission to evolve publicly. Give yourself permission to change every day, to grow every day, to learn every day. And then build empathy. Watch this, not just for others, But have you ever thought about building empathy for your future self? For who you will be tomorrow, for what tomorrow will require from you, for what it will ask for you. Can you build empathy for your future self? Like, have you ever got to a place in life where you're like, man, I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to rest back then because now it's costing me now. See, that's what reverse that, and that's what having empathy for your future self looks like. Oh man, like what am I about to get myself into? Do I need a break right now? Do I need to give some empathy for my future self? Do I need to That's actually quick rabbit trail. I used to be 580 pounds. And then I started thinking about my future self. And I'm like, man, like I have 4 kids and they are all very active. And I started thinking about, man, how do I want to be involved in their lives as they get older and more active? At that moment, I could barely walk up the stairs without having to stop midway and think about, do I just want to go back down the stairs? Maybe it ain't even worth it going all the way up there. And I started realizing, like, man, I'm not going to be able to be active in my children's lives the way that I want to. I'm not going to be able to be active in my grandchildren's lives the way that I want to. So I really need to be empathetic towards my future self. I need to start making decisions today that will help me tomorrow. I hope that's helping somebody. So build empathy, not just for others, but also for your future self. In this, the work of values-based community isn't about defending what was, but it is always about preparing what will be. Oh man. All right, so let's move on to point 2. So we talked about connection to self and this idea of being connected to what's next, but let's talk about this connection to community. And it's the connection to community that is the bridge between present and future. Communities like West Hill model what it looks like to live after the unthinkable. You dared to reimagine faith not as a set of doctrines, but as a set of values. You redefined what it means to gather, not around a creed, but around a cause of humanity. This is ministry at its most human. It is compassion without condition and connection without conversion. When I deconverted from traditional faith, and started sharing, with people my thoughts, one of the things that I would caution the secular community about is not to paint all churches with a broad stroke. And it was because I felt like there were so many really necessary, pivotal even um, value that comes from community, organized church community, that was getting overlooked in the doctrine, especially for many of the type of churches that I came from. And so I started challenging people with this question. I said, tell me, where else can you go where people are going to hug your neck just because you showed up? They tell me, where else can you go where people are literally happy to see you when you walk through the doors? And they're not just happy to see you, but they are interested in your well-being. I reminded them that's what many church communities provide people, a place where they can feel loved, heard, seen, felt, and valued. Again, this is ministry at its most human. Every community choice that we make today, it ripples out into tomorrow, and that's causality in action. Um, I was explaining to my own community that just being able to sit here this morning and watch and witness, West Hill in action has been overwhelming for me. Speaking of causality, because I left the pulpit in 2014. I walked away from the church that I started. I was a church planner. I walked away from the church that I started in a crisis of faith. I walked away from it not really knowing what would ever happen to me again. I spent 10 years pretty much in the closet, not really expressing who I was anymore because I didn't want to offend anybody else's faith, nor did I want to rob anybody of their faith without having something else to give them in place for it. So for 10 years, I sat on the sideline and just kind of worked and just kind of thought and kind of looked around, and I saw Sunday assemblies and I saw the Unitarians and I saw the Oasis movement. And everything was so beautiful. And I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time for me to get back in. And I'm bringing this back to causality. And then I go to NanoCon this year, and I meet Joe, and he starts telling me about Greta and, little black boy from Alabama. I'd never heard of any of this stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me get on the internet and look up Greta, and man, tears in my eyes immediately learning about her story and the story of West Hill and the journey that you all took. Cause I'm like, oh snap, that's like a mirror of my life. Not just my life because I'm so special. It's a mirror of many people's lives who are wrestling with their own faith and where they stand in the world when it comes to religion and their beliefs and how they feel about other people. Because I remind people from a sociological perspective that all religion is humanism. There is not one religion that isn't focused exclusively on humanity. It's all our wrestle to learn how we treat each other, how we love each other, how we create boundaries in our life. It's about what we choose to be sacred. And so your story is a mirror of many people's story of surviving that unthinkable, of coming to that place of saying, oh, I love this because I can use a biblical reference of wrestling with what you worship. This is what Jacob did. This is one of the weirdly most beautiful stories in the Old Testament is Jacob wrestling with the angel, or some people would say God himself, but he's wrestling with what he worships. And that's what I love when humanity actually we say, you know what, I'm not gonna just take this at face value. I am going to wrestle with this. I am going to see how this impacts me. I am going to see how this impacts others, and I'm going to trust myself to make a decision in the best interest of other people. That is a beautiful place to, just by you existing. This is the causality. It gives other people the comfort to say, yes, we can do that, that we can go to that place and we can make up in our minds that regardless of what I believe, at what point am I willing to excommunicate another person over that difference? Regardless of where I stand and what I see, at what point am I willing to dehumanize someone else? When people see West Hill, we get to see our own causality in action. All right, I'll get off my rabbit trail and get back onto my notes. All right, so what we're talking about here is that our choices today, they ripple out into tomorrow. Your choice is to be this church that breaks away from traditional faith and that wrestles with defining your own progressive faith and what it means to exist in the world that has ripples, that has consequential ripples that ripple out into tomorrow. Future orientation means holding both memory and imagination, honoring where you've come from while making room for what could be. It's actually using memory as the launching pad for imagination. This is what was, and from what was can rise what could be. When you create spaces that foster curiosity and empower people to be agents of their own knowledge, you're not just preserving a congregation, you're engineering evolution. That's the conceptual link between your current actions and your future outcomes is primarily explained through causality and is explored across various fields under terms such as thought, action, outcome model, future orientation, and episodic foresight. I'm gonna get into a little bit of that, and then I'm gonna move on. But it's really cool and it's really helpful. So let's talk about it a little bit. All right. So I've already mentioned causality. That's really easy. Cause and effect. That's the fundamental principle that every action, cause, leads to a result. In the context of human behavior, choices and actions set a trajectory for what lies ahead, either opening or closing doors for potential opportunities. I don't want to get in my motivational flow, but I want to say that again because I felt like that was too good. In the context of human behavior, choices and actions set a trajectory for what lies ahead. Every choice we make now, every choice we make today is setting a trajectory for what lies ahead. Our choices are either opening doors for us or closing doors for us. Our choices, the choices we make, and at this moment, I'm not talking about as individuals, we're talking about connection to community, the community decisions today that we make. They are either opening doors in our future or they are closing doors in our future. This is where that future orientation or that time perspective comes in. This psychological concept refers to an individual's focus on future events and goals. A strong future orientation involves clear goal setting, good planning ability, and a willingness to overcome immediate obstacles for long-term benefits. For every community that exists, there has to be somebody there that's navigating. For every community, that's the hard thing about communities. I often like to, I tell people I like to look at communities like ships. And I don't know, it's because if I grew up, it's because I grew up watching Star Trek so much. And so they were always on the ship. You know, you got these different components, but you typically on Star Trek, you typically have like command, you have operations, and then you have medical or science. They're either going to be medical or science, but it's the same thing. But the big point is you have to have people who are focused on the now. You have to have people who are focused on what's going on in the bridge. You have to have people who are focused on what's going on with the people. How do we make sure people are healthy? How do we make sure people are whole? How do we make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do? But there also has to be somebody who's looking in the future. Where are we going next? What does tomorrow look like? What does 5 years from now look like? What does 10 years look like? You don't have to wait to get there to see it. One of my favorite stories in the world, and I'm gonna wrap this up. One of my favorite stories in the world is a story about a man. I don't know if he's even popular to talk about anymore, but he's a man that built this great thing called Walt Disney or Disney World. And he did all of these things, planned all of these things, and he never got to see the fruition of it himself. But they asked his wife at the opening day, "Hey, what do you think it feels like? What do you think Walt would feel like if he was here to see it?" And her response will be etched in my brain forever, that he saw this before any of us did. You need people on your team, in your community, that's what they do. They exist to see the possibilities of tomorrow. That's where that future orientation comes in. You get to start planning for things in advance, which leads us to that episodic foresight. It's the cognitive ability to mentally simulate or pre-experience possible future situations, which serves as the future counterpart for episodic memory. And so one of my favorite, as a former church planter, which is is what I used to do, and I loved it. It was my passion. But as a former church planter, one of the most exciting aspects of being a church planter is walking into an empty warehouse. That's where the excitement kicks in for me. That's where the adrenaline comes in. And it's because of this episodic foresight. It's being able to walk into an empty warehouse and say, man, that's where the sanctuary is going to be. Oh man, that's where the children's area is going to be. Man, there'll be a great banquet hall over there. It's being able to simulate what it will look like in the future. And that's what one of those things that I encourage communities to do. Always keep wondering, what can we look like? What can we be tomorrow? Because that's what's going to empower you with the curiosity to get there. And when a community moves with that kind of foresight, it doesn't just change itself. It changes what's possible for the world, which brings me to my last point, connection to the future. And that is to keep holding the courage to keep becoming. Connected to what's next is a mindset of hope as praxis, not blind optimism, but applied imagination. Progressive communities practice episodic foresight, the ability to mentally walk into tomorrow and bring back that wisdom to act today. The power of future thinking lies not in predicting one future, but in preparing for many. Every choice made in the present is an act of construction for tomorrow, a laying of brick for those who will stand where we once stood. So the applications here are keep setting future-oriented goals for your community, for your city, and for your world. Practice visualizing outcomes that align with your values and not just your traditions. What does a world that aligns with my values look like tomorrow? And how can my community help us get there? And then strengthen the bond with your future community. Imagine what you will be 10 years from now and start making decisions today that honor those decisions. You know, West Hill United stands as living proof that humanity can evolve without abandoning meaning. You've already shown that community doesn't require a creed. It requires courage. It requires compassion and consideration. You've proven that belief isn't what binds people. Values do. Our shared existence, our shared humanity. What's next isn't about rebuilding what once was. It's about revealing what has always been possible. That compassion, curiosity, and connection are more sacred than any scripture could ever be. So may you continue to be the proof that love can outlast dogma, that progress can outshine fear, and that being human together is enough. You are connected to what's next. Keep becoming, keep building, keep being the bridge. And I'll close by saying, may love always abound.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.